Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty at the Haggerty10 on the X or Twitter handle. And as you astute people will see, there's three of us today. The three amigos, Avengers Assemble, call it what you like. I'm joined today, delighted to be joined today actually by Ryan McGinley at the Ryan McGinley on X or Twitter handle, and a guy you'll be seeing a lot more of in the coming weeks and months, Joe Donnelly. Joe, how you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks again for having me back. It was great to make my debut last week, and yeah, number 2 now, so no stopping me now.
Ryan, as a man-by-man mark, what would you have given Joe for his debut, seeing as how I wasn't present? Put you right in the spot there.
I know that a perfect 10 I would give. Do I give a 10 or do I give a 9? Because there's always room for improvement. That's what I always say anyway. I'm only joking. He was absolutely perfect. Sublime debut performance, and he's been brought back after a successful trial period, you could say.
to be fair, I heard that, Joe, so nice one. Good to have you back, sir. Today we'll be, just say to the boys off here, we'll be indulging a bit of the clash. Should they stay or should they go? We'll just go through the players and we'll give our honest opinions on that. But first things first, bit of housekeeping as we do every morning. We say thank you to our sponsors, MPH Group and Weissman Boilers, and our exciting news from our sponsors, MPH Group, because they're opening a brand new kitchen showroom in Dunfermline, Fife, with a VIP Vegas themed launch weekend from June the 14th to the 16th. That's tomorrow, and right through to Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be roulette games with instant prizes like 10% off services, free boiler services, and a chance to enter a draw for bigger prizes. And if you land in zero, you'll get entered into a grand draw for a 4-night stay in Las Vegas, complete with a helicopter tour. So don't miss out. RSVP now at www.launch.mph.group to secure your spot. That's a prize worth having, guys. And as you see along the strapline at the bottom, subscribe to the Celtic Way. £4 for 4 months of top quality journalism covering the club you love. Visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Hit that button, troops. So how are we, guys? Are we good? Are we looking forward to the Euros, or are we just starved of Celtic stuff, or are we wanting the club stuff back, the real football back, as people would say?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Euros personally. I'm looking forward to the 3 games a day as well. You know, having that 2, 5, and 8 sort of routine, which is going to be absolutely brilliant over the course of the next 8 or 9 days in a row in which that will happen. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to Scotland's participation in it as well. Yes, I'm kind of starved of Celtic at the moment, but it is a good break because we know that next season is going to be so busy, fighting on 4 fronts when it comes to the Scottish Cup, League Cup, Scottish Premiership, and the Champions League. So that's exciting. Enjoying the downtime just now. Hopefully a bit more in the way of transfers, especially with the window opening tomorrow. But yeah, happy with the way that things went last season. Looking forward to next season, and just going to enjoy the Euros in the middle.
Joe's only natural that the Celtic interest in the Euros with Scotland players, we just migrate towards that. And you know, lots of people, maybe if they're Celtic supporters, aren't Scotland supporters, pay your money, you take your choice. If you follow the fortunes of Scotland, you'll be looking forward to this. But I guess as a fervent club supporter, you do follow the fortunes of country, especially when there's Celtic representation there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you want Scotland to do well. Generally, you want the Celtic boys to do well. You want them to remain injury free, of course. Some real crunch games coming up. I always view the tournaments. Obviously Scotland haven't always been there, but it's the same way that I would have viewed the early European qualifiers in years gone by. And despite principally that being an indictment on the fact that Celtic would win the league and have to play so many games, it was like pre-season games with an edge. Obviously, Scotland being in the Euros is a really big deal for the country, but it keeps the Celtic boys that are involved sharp. It keeps them playing in real competitive games, and hopefully that bodes well. As Ryan said, we've got some really important games coming up in Europe, and obviously once the domestic campaign starts as well.
Now, Robert Gibson, straight off the bat, don't care about the Euros. Okay, Robert, you're entitled to your opinion on that one. That's fair enough. Danny Boy, different. Bring on the Euros, he's saying. And Jonathan McIntyre coming on saying, hi guys, love the fantastic work you guys are doing in the growth of this channel. Can either be the correct striker to to go for us to move in the Champions League, to move on the Champions League, we'll maybe come to him. But Ryan, a list of players, I think you have a list of players in front of you, so we just take it from the top then?
Do you want to go from the back, front, or do you want to...
Yeah, we'll go back to front. Yeah, that's a good way to start for me.
So in goals then, already... We need
who we linked with today? I think Joe, you might be getting a chance for Celtic and go. I think you're the only guy that's still been linked with the number one position so far. But in terms of goalkeepers, obviously Joe Hart's retired. We have Benjamin Siegrist and Scott Bain. Ryan, I've got to think that, you could be looking at both of them leaving, or certainly if one stays, it would be Scott Bain for me. I think Benjamin Siegrist is for the exit door, is he not?
I think he'll be looking for any move to Australia if possible, just given his family situation. Congratulations to him on getting engaged to his partner. That was great to see. But that'll be something that he'll be looking to maybe try and get sorted. I would imagine, it would make sense for him to play in Australia, especially because he's been doing long distance with his girlfriend, now fiance, for 2 years, which can be difficult. So I think there's two positions that need to be filled. I know Scott Bain has been the number 2 for the past couple of seasons, even though he's kind of the number 3. It's a weird one because I thought that Benjamin Siegrist was going to be the number 2, maybe even pushing for the number 1 spot a couple of seasons ago. That hasn't exactly worked out. He did get on the bench for the first half of Ange's second season, and then for whatever reason he became third choice and he hardly get named in the squad whatsoever. So yeah, bit of an odd one. I'm wondering if the truth will come out in that in a few years' time. But yeah, there needs to be a first choice and probably a second or third choice coming through the door as well. Whoever that's going to be, they have to be ready for the job. They have to be ready for the pressure of playing for Celtic and being a personality at the back. And for me, that's a position that needs to get sorted first. That's got to be the first position that's signed. If not the first, then maybe the second or third. But you're looking at maybe the end of June, start of July for a goalkeeper coming in. I think they need to be there for the full duration of pre-season in order to get used to their teammates and used to their new surroundings. Such an important position. It is the difference between Celtic winning and drawing games, in my opinion, because they might not have anything to do for 85, 86 minutes. Then they have a couple of shots and they have to be ready. It's a very different proposition being a goalkeeper for the other teams that they're playing for than being a Celtic goalkeeper. I know it changes slightly in the Champions League because they'll face more shots, but they need to be constantly on it. I just want Celtic to get this position sorted sooner rather than later, because it seems every day that Celtic are getting linked with a new goalkeeper. You want this merry-go-round. As much as I enjoy the transfer rumours, just want them to be sorted and then have a new number 1 in between the sticks.
Joe, I think, I'm going to speak for myself, but I think a lot of Celtic supporters maybe share this view as well. I think they're disappointed in the way it happened with Siegrist. I think they had really high hopes when he came in. As Ryan said, that not only would he become the number 2, but push, be a decent deputy, but then push to be the number 1. And it just didn't happen. It didn't materialise. And then all of a sudden you heard about his love interest and stuff like that. He made more headlines for that off the park than he did on the park, didn't he? And it's times with disappointment for me, because I genuinely rated him as a goalkeeper when he was at Dundee United. I thought it was an excellent signing for Celtic, and I thought that he would do what Joe Hart did, I have to be honest, and make that position his own for the best part of his Celtic contract, but he hasn't, and it now puts Celtic in that quandary, isn't it, that not only are they maybe looking for certainly an undisputed number 1, but they might be looking for another number 2.
Yeah, I think it is a strange one, because I share the exact same views. When he was at Dundee United, I thought he was a fantastic keeper. He always seemed to turn up against Celtic and Rangers, one of those keepers that really threw everything at it when he was playing under pressure, which, if we're thinking about European football, as you say, Ryan, goalkeepers with a lot more to do. He was inexperienced, but he felt like one of those kind of bigger game players, which is the exact profile of a Celtic goalkeeper. Obviously, we don't see behind the scenes in terms of what's getting produced at training and things like that. I know that certainly when I worked in the media team at the club, that Scott Bain is very high regarded behind the scenes. He's a well-liked guy, and we speak about that presence and pushing, the other positions on the training ground. I think that Scott Bain certainly fits that profile. So I see him remaining as number 2. You've got Toby Oluwayemi, the young goalkeeper that's coming back from loan this season. I know, likewise, I've been back a few years now since I was there, but I know that he was really well regarded. And I saw him, I think he's in his early 20s now, so it must have been his late teens for the B team, and he looked like a strong, commanding goalkeeper. You've seen him step up to the matchday squad. Sometimes, you can see him training with the goalkeepers, even though he's not on the bench. He's been travelling with the team. But yeah, it's a goalkeeper every day at this point, isn't it? And getting that position, I spoke last week to Ryan about this when I was on the briefing as well. I'm not really fussed what position we saw immediately, but I do think for the fans, for the dressing room, for the team, getting that backbone back in, especially when you're losing someone as big in stature as Joe Hart. But Siegrist is a weird one. I think that it felt like, from the outside looking in, that all the pieces were there for him to make the jersey his own, and for whatever reason it's not materialised. And without being cynical about it, if that's not working, then we need to make it work, and we need to move quickly, in my opinion, to get that sorted.
Yeah, so I think we're all in agreement that Siegrist leaves, Bain probably stays, and Toby Oluwayemi, don't know, that's kind of up in the air. Maybe another loan spell, or maybe he can become one of those ones that you see, Joe, that pushes for more match day squads. See what happens moving forward. Yeah, we'll be happy with that.
Yeah, that seems fair. Yep.
Yeah, although I think that if Oluwayemi is going to make the breakthrough, it has to be either this season or next season, because he's 21 years old. I know that his brother played for Tottenham as well, but he's now moved. I looked at this yesterday. He's actually in Finland now playing. I know that Toby was playing for Admira last season, and he had a bit of a mixed spell because he had injuries. It was Matthew Anderson who had the sort of breakout loan spell. If you look, there's an article coming to the website tomorrow that'll be explaining how well Matthew Anderson did do away in Austria. The numbers are really, really good. He really took that loan spell with both hands and went with it, and he's done really well. So that's, maybe I've jumped the gun a wee bit there in terms of talking about left back, but it was a mixed bag considering Admira. But does Oluwayemi go out on loan, or do they just let him go permanently? It's a decision to be made in the next couple of weeks, I would say. But highly rated. I know Joe Hart was highly rated him as well, and he was always in and about him, as Joe was saying, in the match day squad. You always seen the two of them training and talking. There's not many better players to feed off of than Joe Hart in that position. So you're hoping that some of that is transferred to him.
I think this is the only goalkeeper that Celtic haven't been linked with. Dino's off, still available, I believe. So that's one for the Celtic Daz out there, Ryan. Dino's off, who famously won the World Cup in 1982 with Italy at the tender age of 40. But there you have it. Excellent. Now, moving into the defence, Ryan, we're just going to take it. We're going to go right back, left back, centre backs, or what way do you want to go, formation wise?
I think fullback's easy to do, because I think you only really need to talk about one side, if I'm being honest. Because at right back, you've got two internationals. You got a Scotland international and a Canadian international. I actually think for the first time in a good while, or over the past year or so, that Celtic are in a pretty good position when it comes to right backs. Alistair Johnston, for me, was arguably one of Celtic's best players in the second half of last season. Even maybe not even performances, yes, but also in terms of driving the team forward. I felt like there was an emergence of another captain in the team, another mouthpiece, another player to rely on to bring that energy in the team, and it was great to see that. So at right back, I think Celtic are sorted. Maybe even bring in a young prospect, maybe Worker and shadow off of those two players. But at left back, it's a bit of a different story. I think there needs to be at least two that are brought in the summer potentially. I know Greg Taylor's an international as well, and it's good to see the fullbacks, a position that's been much maligned in recent years. Although Greg Taylor did have that good season and a half under Ange Postecoglou. They're both internationalists, but people always seem to want better. But I think that left back's a position that Celtic need to strengthen. I think a Brendan Rodgers-esque left back needs to be brought in. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, Joe. I think we're, as Ryan says, well stocked for right backs in terms of Alistair Johnston, who had a dip in form during last season, but came back strongly towards the end. And then Anthony Ralston, every time you open your mouth about Anthony Ralston, he just ends up shattering any kind of illusion that you have of him. He's probably going to start on Friday for Steve Clark's Scotland, and good on him. He is just the epitome of someone who gives his all, a wholehearted player and a committed club individual, and I love that about him. Left back, yeah, we have to get the list out for that, don't we, and have some persons of interest and quickly, as we say, to get them in the door quickly and get them bedded in and settled into what Brendan Rodgers wants. Various rumours kicking about, getting the band back together with Kieran Tierney and all this kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, okay, we shall see what happens with that. But Joe, I'm thinking that Celtic are doing their due diligence on this. They will have left backs on lists, won't they? Or if they don't, they should be, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I think so. Ryan and I spoke about this when I was on last week, that the competition for places in modern football is so important, and it's something that Brendan Rodgers has always spoken about. His last time here and during this time as well, and the amount of players that he's brought on because of that competition for places. You're seeing players like Liam Scales slotting in all of last season, playing the same amount of games as Callum McGregor, I believe, or thereabouts, which no one would have foreseen towards the end of last year, even at the start of this season. I don't even think Liam Scales himself. So having those players that come in and are pushing the others, Greg Taylor has, probably an argument to be made that his best football was played under the last manager, but obviously changing the structure of the defence, playing a lot less of the inverted fullbacks and going more wide with the fullbacks, like we saw in Brendan Rodgers' teams gone by. But yeah, having other players that are asking questions of Greg Taylor would certainly what I'm looking for. You mentioned Kieran Tierney about getting the band back together, Tony. The wages are surely the big
I don't think,
point there.
Yeah.
No, but I was going to ask you guys, what do you think if there was some agreement to be made there in terms of wages? Is it a player that comes back in for you guys, or is it never go back? You've had your day.
Listen,
and that's it.
In an ideal world, if you could sort something out with Kieran Tierney, you'd have him back in a heartbeat, because it's where his football heart lies, and it's where he wants to go. But his wages have just gone stratospheric since he left Celtic, and I just don't think Celtic, one, they can't afford them. But if this happens, it will be because Kieran Tierney forces it through, and that's what he wants, And if that's what you're getting, then I would sanction that. That would be great. But I just that kind of willy won't. I don't even resign when I see these things. I just see them as flight of fancy, and until it happens, so be it. But I just think Celtic have got bigger things to worry about than will Kieran Tierney come back, will Stuart Armstrong come back, that getting the band back together. As I say, that I just think our ambitions a wee bit. And certainly bringing back Kieran Tierney would be ambitious, but I just think your ambition is somewhere else, and you want a newness and a freshness. Kieran Tierney I would take back, and I think we spoke the other day, the only other one of the recent players that have been and gone would be Jota, if they could do something with that. But anything else, I don't particularly want to entertain. And I think the manager wants to put his own stamp on it as well, and not look back, and move forward. But we agree. We keep Taylor, great squad player moving forward. He will be a horses for courses player. We're definitely keeping Johnston. We're keeping Ralston. And we are making a left back one of those priorities, that kind of spine of the team, the goalkeeper, left back, centre back, midfielder, striker type thing. Yeah.
See the thing about Tierney, my heart would say yes, absolutely, bring him back. Then my head gets into it and says absolutely not, for two reasons. The wages would be astronomical. Celtic will not pay over the odds for a left back. The only position they'll probably do that in is up front or a midfielder, a dynamic midfielder. Also, and it's the big elephant in the room, unfortunately, concerning Tierney, I think Celtic are in part to blame a tiny bit for this. His injury record.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. Yeah.
Greg Taylor would still play 30 games a season if Kieran Tierney came back, and that's just due to the wear and tear that he's accumulated over his career. He was playing through the pain barrier towards the end at Celtic, and Celtic still managed to get 25 million from Arsenal for his services. A lot of people said that was cheap. I thought that was fair game considering the injuries that he was picking up. seem to remember, and I know that Joe can probably confirm this, there was probably injections being taken in order for him to get through games due to the pain that he was having towards the end of his Celtic career. You know, he put his body on the line for Celtic. I think that was possibly to his detriment in his later career. But I just, my head says, nah, don't go back the way. Although I would love to see Kieran Tierney. It's just his injury record is just too. It's too long. It's too many injuries have happened over the past few years. For me personally, I need a left back that's going to come in and instantly take that place for 40, 50 games. That is a marked improvement. You know, similar to Alistair Johnson. I know Juranovic was. Sorry, I remember Juranovic was there, but it felt almost as if, and I don't know about you guys, but Alistair Johnson was a bit of an upgrade on Juranovic, especially defensively. So I want to see that on the other side, basically.
And the forgotten man in all of this, Joe, Alexandro Bernabe, I take it we feel that his days at Celtic Park are numbered as well, and he'll be exiting stage door left at some point as well.
I think so. He's the only loan player that's that we've got out on loan that's not coming back in the summer. Is that right? His loan deal expires on Christmas Eve, I think, at the end of the year. Which, for what it's worth, you know, very, very enthusiastic, very energetic on the pitch. Seemed to have a decent drive behind him as well, but often for me looked lost. Is the nicest way I can put it, and struggling to follow, you know, the structure that was required in the last setup, and certainly in this one. I don't think that's. I think he'll be looking for the door then.
We've joked before that the famous Walter Smith quote about Scott Nisbet applied to Alexander Bernabe, but every pass was an adventure. You know, that kind of thing. So I think he fell into that category, didn't he? And you know, through no fault of his own. But yeah, I think there'll be a parting of the ways there. And obviously, he blotted his copybook with Brendan by missing the first team meeting, wasn't it? I think when Brendan showed up, which was poor. And you know, for Brendan Rodgers, you're a Celtic player both on and off the field. You have to represent the club in the finest fashion. And I just think after that, it was a kind of sliding scale, wasn't it? You just think, okay, fair enough.
Set the tone.
Yeah, he didn't impress the manager at all with that. So, said more about Bernabe, I guess. So, fair enough. Centre backs, Ryan, we've got a few of them. We may as well just start with the ones we'll keep. Cameron Carter-Vickers, God. So, end of.
Scales probably as well. New 4-year deal. So, he can do his backup for me. Although he is an international now, a fully fledged international for the Republic of Ireland. There's question marks over, I'd say, Welsh as well as Nawrowski. I'd say the two of them have got question marks in terms of where Celtic need to be, or they're aiming to be. I think they need to have a better standard of centre-back going forward. Nawrowski is a very, very odd one, I'll be honest, because I was excited about this player coming through the door, highly rated. You know, Polish media were raving about him, saying this is a great move for him. He's going to come in and instantly command the spot. I know Starfelt was there at that point, but we kind of knew that he was out the door at that point, or he was heading out the door just for family issues. But it's for whatever reason, I think injury, lack of form, it's not really worked out for him. Pre-season is going to be massive, as we spoke about yesterday. Other players, Kobayashi and Lagerbielke, they've got to fall by the wayside. Unfortunately, they're not going to make it in a Brendan Rodgers team. Kobayashi's unfortunate because Ange Postecoglou, much like O, we'll probably get on to talk about O in another video, they're in that middle ground where they've kind of fallen through between Ange Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers. Kobayashi would have had more of a chance under Ange Postecoglou, but with Brendan Rodgers, he's watched him and he just doesn't fancy him clearly. So those two will go. I think the only set to be in the starting lineup next season in terms of a centre-back, it's Carter-Vickers. It's going to have to be Carter-Vickers and somebody that they sign in the summer for me.
Joe, wholeheartedly agree with that. It's Carter-Vickers and another. Because for me, Liam Scales is, again, a squad player moving forward and somebody who you can rely on. But if you're wanting to take your club to the next level, then Liam Scales has to understand his role. He'll be another one of those players Brendan Rodgers will have the chat with and say, you'll have to understand your role moving forward. Kobayashi, Nawrowski and Lagerbielke, as much as they've shelled out money for all of these guys, it's just not worked, and they're just not what the manager requires or up to the standard that the manager feels is required, and that's why we are looking at bringing in a centre back. Flavius Dinnerly, it's been linked. Scott McKenna been linked. Somebody of that out, but we just need somebody with presence. So my personal preference is to get a big centre back with a physical presence, a bit of height and a bit of muscle and a bit of strength in that back line to play alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. I don't know your own thoughts, but you're just about to give me them. So
yeah, sure. I agree wholeheartedly. I think the presence in the back line is certainly important for me, just because of set pieces. That's a solid performance, I think, over the course from the Celtic defence. If you look at the season as a whole, in terms of the ups and downs and highs and lows, I think the organisation was fine over the course, despite some dips and some real top performances as well. But presence and cross balls is massive, and obviously that feeds into the goalkeeper as well. Having that connectedness between the goalkeeper and the back line is hugely important, and it's something that Joe Hart and Cameron Carter-Vickers especially had locked down. So when when Joe Hart drops out of the team and retires, that goalkeeper needs to come in, and I think another centre back is what we're looking at. I think, without being overly cruel on someone like Lager Bielka, like that dispossession he had in the first game at Ibrox, where it leads to a goal that gets chopped off. Again, it's unfair to judge someone solely on one single mistake and moment, but it kind of felt, in terms of being up for the occasion, when there was no Celtic fans in the ground, if you could pinpoint a moment where you thought, is he up for it? That to me was it. And I get that that's harsh, and you shouldn't be judging them on one single moment, but it kind of, back at any other time where he was in around the team,
a red flag for the manager, Joe, I thought, at that point.
For sure,
was there, and he just kind of thought he couldn't trust him to.
And that's that used.
And I've made the point.
Brendan Rodgers was still getting used to the team at that point, wasn't he? He was still working out his best 11, and as you say, who can he trust? And in that moment, it felt like maybe that was lost at that point. And I don't think, again, behind the scenes, Lager Bielka perhaps hasn't, obviously I don't know this, but he perhaps hasn't shown anything to restore that faith. I think Noralski still has something to prove. As you say, Ryan, pre-season could be massive for him. Stephen Welsh is a funny one because he is a massive Celtic fan in the same vein as a Tony Ralston or even a Kieran Tierney in years gone by. When he came in on the last game of the season and makes that error, lose the penalty kick, I felt sorry for him because he's obviously lost his match fitness, his timing was off. But at the same time, these are the moments that you really need to grab with both hands. Longer term, is he pushing the players off the pitch? Is he doing that in training? He has extended his contract not too long ago. But realistically, I think we're looking at a new face to come in and hit the ground running. Like I said this last week when I was on, I think the goalkeeper, something in the top end of the pitch, and a centre back to come in and just be able to get to grips right away. Nothing that needs time and bedding, that needs to get up to fitness. Someone that can just come in and commandeer that position would be great. And again, if Liam Scales is fighting for that position, as we said about competition, that's brilliant as well for me.
I also think, Joe, that the point you were making there as well, alluding to it, Celtic lost lots of similar goals last season, didn't they? The ball to the back post, with a commanding centre half who's commanding aerially, who's aware of sees the game in pictures and spatially aware, would have been meat and drink to them. Wouldn't get caught underneath it. So I think that for me is important. Presence, dominance in the air in those situations. And I particularly look at the 2 goals that were conceded to Aberdeen in the last minute of the semi-final. Carbon copies with bread and butter balls into the box, and a commanding defender takes that, all day long. All day long. I mean, you and I were there, Ryan, and we would just shake our head. To lose the one in the last minute of normal time and then to lose in the last minute of extra time, it bordered on criminal, didn't it, really?
Scott McKenna stops both those goals from happening, in my opinion. I just think that he's not glamorous. He's not glamorous, but I think he's very, very good at defending. I think he's like an upgraded version of what Liam Scales brings to the party. He's a Scotland international. He's got Premier League experience. If it wasn't for falling out with the manager or falling below in the pecking order, he'd still be playing in the Premier League for Nottingham Forest. I just think it's a no-brainer if you can bring him in. I think it's an interesting one, the goalkeeper and the centre half, because I think they parallel. Because if you're going to bring in a project goalkeeper, then I would want an experienced centre back, or vice versa. If you're bringing in a project centre back to go alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers, I know the thought of that scares people, but you would want an experienced goalkeeper. You can't have both of the same, in my opinion. I think if you're not to cut corners, but if you're looking to be effective in your transfer dealings, you might look at Scott McKenna on a free. You're like, give him good wages, and he'll come to the club. And if he was to go to Celtic, you would know that he's a Brendan Rodgers signing, because you can
Brendan likes him.
Both. Brendan Rodgers really likes him, especially in that first period as Celtic manager. He tried every single transfer window. Every transfer window he was linked with Celtic before he's moved down south. So you keep the manager happy. You bring in somebody that he wants. Belatedly, yes, but better late than never in terms of bringing a player in.
My thoughts are that you bring in someone like McKenna. If it's McKenna, Joe, he's no nonsense. He does exactly what it says in the tin. He'll go and win you the ball in the air and he'll clear it on the deck. I'm of the opinion that, see, when defenders just do the basics, that's what I want. Get the basics mastered first. And if you can do that, and Scott McKenna can, then we work in finesse and style later on. But I want my defenders to go and win it in the air. When that ball's coming over at Hampden, I want somebody just to clear it and everything else in its path and just mop up danger, spot danger, be able to anticipate. And then we start on the ball playing stuff, because I look at, the decent defenders going past, the Martin Eulera and all that. He filled it full of big guys. Bobo Baldi wasn't the greatest defender in the world. Volharen wasn't the greatest. I'm talking about ball-playing defenders, But Miyalbi, Volharen and Baldi could defend. They could intimidate. They were never out-muscled. They were physical. They were competitive. And then they became better players because they were playing alongside better teams. And I think Brendan Rodgers feels he could do that with somebody like Scott McKenna of that ilk. He'll become a better football player just playing alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Yeah, and I think that Cameron Carter-Vickers is so good at reading the game, isn't he? And he's so good at instigating attacks and pushing that backline forward. Again, with a goalkeeper, using Joe Hart as an example, someone who plays so far forward and is able to play it from the back. I think I totally agree about having a defender who has aerial presence, who doesn't always need to be finessed in terms of the ball at his feet. But what I love about Brendan Rodgers' style of play with that aggressive high press is Ange Postecoglou's everything from the back, and it was fast and it was sharp and built up. Obviously worked superbly well for Celtic. But in the Scottish game, it's quite refreshing to see the way that Brendan Rodgers will mix up the long and short of it. If you look at the Daiza goal against Rangers at Ibrox, that goal probably isn't going to be scored in an Ange Postecoglou team because Joe Hart's always going to be looking for that short ball. The fact that he's able to go long is creating different opportunities. And if you pair a defender who can go short and long, as the situation dictates, having that alongside someone who's so organised as Cameron Carter-Vickers, who is so communicative, is pushing the team forward, I think could work really well. But yeah, that presence in the air. And the Aberdeen game is a perfect example. The Rangers 3-each game to an extent, although that is a fantastic goal that gets Rangers back into it. We're so used to seeing Celtic teams, be it Brendan Rodgers and Postecoglou, Brendan Rodgers the time before, or Neil Lennon, whoever, being able to see out games. And that Aberdeen game was just so unlike a Celtic team, wasn't it? Like those two goals were carbon copies, as you say. And in any other season gone by, I expect Celtic to be able to see the game out inside 90 minutes. And then if it doesn't work, to see it inside extra time. And the fact that those goals were lost in that fashion, yeah, it feels like a defender with no nonsense, as you say, could get in there and get those cleared. And that's more playing to what we're used to from Celtic in terms of seeing games out.
So Cameron Carter-Vickers stays, yeah. Kobayashi goes.
I would never let him leave if I had any say in it.
So Cameron Carter-Vickers stays. Kobayashi out the door. Lagerbielke and Nawrocki. Well, Lagerbielke is probably certainly out the door for a start. Nawrocki might get pre-season and might get a chance to see what he could do. Stephen Welsh, is he staying around for the Scottish contingent and squad player purposes? And Liam Scales has signed a new.
I just think, sorry to interject here, but I just think that contract renewal in August. You know, it's the timing of it as well, because he signs the contract. But this is how it's a domino effect with the defenders that happened in August. Don't think anything like that will ever happen again. Hopefully not, touch wood anyway, that won't happen. There was a domino effect when it came to defenders that allowed Liam Scales into the first team that have now, you know, ended up with him having a new 4-year deal, and deservedly so, in my opinion, because he was a first team player. Regardless of what you think about his performances, he was a first team player and he deserves to be recognised as such. Stephen Welsh gets a new deal and then gets injured on the same day, and he's out for like 3-4 months. So it's that domino effect. He got the 4-year deal. I think Brendan Rodgers sees him as a player that he can maybe work with and get better over the time. Injuries, he's got to stay clear of injuries. And I say that with both his feet, his legs, and his shoulders as well. Because a couple of times his shoulder's been injured, and that seems to be a weak point of his. He got that in the final game of the season that he got that injury and had to be brought off. He was also brought off against Rangers, in which Nawrocki came on and had a good second half appearance. It was in the second half. So it's all about him staying injury free and waiting for that opportunity, similar to Liam Scales. But you're hoping that that sort of nightmare scenario at the back doesn't happen again. You want all the players fit. I don't know about you guys. Cammy Carter-Vickers and Scott McKenna sounds like an imposing back line. Put a left back and Alistair Johnson in there, and that's a pretty good defence, if you ask me. I think it's a no-brainer for Scott McKenna, and he had a good loan spell at Copenhagen too. So I think he was front and centre of their defence. So that was good to see that he's been rated in a good Copenhagen side that were in the last 16 of the Champions League. He's got a good passing accuracy. I was just checking there. Unlucky not to be playing more for Nottingham Forest, but you know their high turnover of players just due to the system that they've got. I think it's a no-brainer if you can get him on a free transfer.
Yes, well, that looks like a good way to end this one. We'll do the midfielders and attackers tomorrow. Joe, can you join us tomorrow? Seeing as how you joined us for the first part, is you good?
Sounds good, yeah. If you'll have me back,
we'll have you back. Seeing as how you've been part of this one, yeah. So we'll do the midfielders and attackers tomorrow, and obviously the Euro starts as well tomorrow. So can't wait for that. But thank you for your company today, boys. Enjoyed that. It's always very interesting to hear other people's views about who should stay or go at Celtic or what they think about players, isn't it? And it's a wee bit of different from the norm with, you know, commenting on speculation and goalkeepers being linked. I'm going to wait to see if I can dig out a number for Dino's off. See if he's interested. See if he's interested. But Joe, thank you for today's stellar contribution. As always, Ryan, thank you so much. And we say thank you to our sponsors, MPH Group and Weissman Boilers. And guys, get yourself along to Dunfermline Fife and see if you can get yourself into that draw for a 4-night stay in Las Vegas, complete with a helicopter tour, June the 14th to the 16th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And as we're on the subject of subscriptions, subscribe to the Celtic Way, guys. If you haven't done it already, hit the button. It costs you £4 for 4 months. Top quality stuff from all the guys you see on your screen. There's stuff from myself and Ryan and stuff from Joe. You hit that button, guys, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. We shall see you, three amigos will see you all again tomorrow, and we'll discuss the midfielders and strikers, who we want to keep and who we want to depart the scene. Take it easy, guys. Have a wonderful Thursday.
Cheers, guys.